is up, Knicks fans? Welcome back to yet another episode of Fireside Knicks. I'm your host, Dylan Backer, and last night the New York Knicks somehow won the game against the Brooklyn Nets by a score of 124 to 122. They thwarted what was a ferocious comeback effort by the Brooklyn Nets in the fourth quarter, and they somehow escaped with the win thanks to Jalen Brunson's heroics. So today I'm just going to talk about that game, some of the takeaways from that game, and really what this means for the Knicks going forward, because there's clearly some things that are kind of concerning, as we enter the second half of November and into December and all that. So we're just going to dive right into it. So first off, the game against Brooklyn, right? The Knicks, for the first three quarters, it seemed like this was going to be a blowout win. They were up by as much as 21 late in the third quarter with about a minute and 17 left in the third quarter, even up by 18 in the fourth quarter. It looked like they were just going to cruise to a victory. This game also did not feature Karl Anthony Towns, as he was out with the knee contusion that he suffered in the fourth quarter against the Chicago Bulls on Wednesday. So this looked like it'd be a pretty easy win while they were shorthanded. So it looked to be a pretty impressive win in the books, and then all of a sudden, the Knicks kind of just took their foot off the gas. They stopped playing defense. They allowed the Nets to really just light it up from three in the fourth quarter, as they hit 6 of their 19 threes in the fourth quarter. And they outscored New York by a score of 40 to 24 in the closing period. 40 to 24. I mean, that's bad. These fourth quarters for the Knicks have been rough. I'm just going to be honest with you. The only one that was really good was the one against Chicago, but they ended up not winning that game. They ended up losing in a heartbreak right there, and it looked like at the very last 10 seconds of this game that they were going to lose in another heartbreaking fashion. Dennis Schroeder hit that three with like 12 seconds left, and I thought that was the knife in the chest. I thought the Knicks were not going to be able to win this game after that. All the life that they had been sucked out of them, had been sucked out of that building. Everything was gone. You had a 20-point lead, and just like that, it was gone. So I thought they were done. I wasn't feeling good about it. But then Jalen Brunson came through after falling just short of coming through against the Bulls with that buzzer beater that rolled in and out. This time he actually hit the shot. He hit the three-pointer on Dorian Finney-Smith, his former teammate. He hit it in his face with about 6 seconds left to give the Knicks a lead by 2. And they ended up winning the game thanks to that Mikal Bridges block at the final second. So they clawed away. They escaped with a win and avoided a disastrous loss, because that would have been, quite frankly, a historic collapse. That would have been really bad. That would have been really bad for the state of the team going forward. Now they're back in the 500. They're 6-6 on the year, back in the win column. You have the Brooklyn Nets again tomorrow night, though, and you gotta realize that you cannot just be complacent against these guys. These guys can score. Credit to the Nets is where it's due. Cam Thomas put up 43 points and 72% shooting from the field. He went 7 of 7 in the first quarter with 19 points and 5 of 5 from 3. That guy can score, man. Shout out Cam Thomas, honestly. He can score. I got to tip my cap to him. The guy is a tough bucket getter. He no matter what contest you throw at him, he's going to make it. So I got to tip my cap to that. Props to him. But the rest of the guys, the Nets didn't have Nicholas Claxton in this game. They were missing him, so there really was no reason why the Knicks should have gotten so complacent down the stretch and just let this one nearly slip away. The defense just stopped in the fourth quarter. They just stopped playing defense. The first three quarters they were actually playing solid defense. They looked cohesive on both ends of the floor. Everything just fell apart in the fourth quarter. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's been going on with these fourth quarters lately, but something's got to change, because it's kind of getting concerning now that through the first 12 games of the season, the fourth quarter has been the bad quarter for the Knicks. Usually, us fans, we're used to the third quarter being that bad quarter. But this time, it's been the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter, they've been getting bounced around like crazy the past few weeks. And really, it's why they've been struggling this year. Because, when they lose these games, they lose close. They pretty rarely get blown out. They don't lose by a large margin at all whatsoever. They fight to the very end and all this stuff, but they can never seem to close it out. Last night against Brooklyn they did, which is huge. That was huge that you ended up closing that out, because that would have been a really bad loss. That would have been, I can't overstate that enough, really, honestly, how bad of a loss that would have been. So thankfully, Jalen Brunson came through with Towns out. That's something I think is pretty important too. He needed to have a big game with Karl Anthony Towns sitting this one out, and he did just that. 37 points is a season high for Brunson, 12 of 20 from the floor, 3 of 8 from 3, 7 assists. An efficient night from him. It really was, and he came through in the clutch down the stretch. He hit some clutch buckets to keep the Knicks in front while the Nets were forming their comeback, and then, of course, hit the game-winning 3 in the final seconds that catapulted them to the win. He saved them. He really did. Brunson saved the day. Brunson saved a lot of Knicks fans from having some really bad crash outs, so really just great performance from Brunson. He needed to have a game like that. Mikal Bridges also had a very solid game too. Another guy who really needed to have a good game with Towns out. He had a season high 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He went 4 of 7 from 3, 9 of 17 from the floor. This guy had a game that he needed to have. He's been struggling mightily of late. He hasn't been really getting going. It's been kind of a weird season for Bridges. Really, it has been so far. But this was a game he really needed to have against his former team, and I think he really had a good game. I think he was really getting to his spots pretty easily. He was making plays with the ball. He only had 1 turnover, by the way, as well, and he also was playing solid defense. He had a steal and a block. So, shout out Mikal Bridges, honestly. Honestly, really good game from him. OG Anunoby continued his excellence of late. 25 points. That's like now the 4th 20-point game in the last 5 games for OG. He had 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and 1 assist. 10 of 17 from the floor. He was a perfect 9 of 9 inside the arc. Now, he was 1 of 8 from 3, so the 3-point shot just wasn't falling for him last night, which it happens, but he was making an impact everywhere else on the floor to where it didn't matter. I mean, they couldn't guard him. They simply could not guard him. No matter where he was getting to his spots super easily on the court. Very much, the moment he stepped inside the arc, it was automatic for him at that point. He literally didn't miss from inside for crying out loud. So, OG continues to be excellent, be consistent. Now, the main guy that I want to cover in this video is Ariel Hukporti. He ended up getting the backup center minutes with Towns out. Jericho Sims got the start, but Hukporti played more minutes. Hukporti played 30 minutes last night against Brooklyn. 30 minutes. That is the most he's ever played by far in an NBA game. He had 7 points. Those are his first career 7 points. So, shout out him for getting his first points. 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 blocks. 4 blocks from Hukporti. And the guy, when he was the primary defender, Brooklyn shot 7 for 21. That's 33% when he was the primary defender. I mean, I don't really know what else to say other than he needs to be the backup center moving forward. It's that simple. I really don't think there's any sort of way you can justify playing Sims anymore. I really don't. Sims didn't even play that bad yesterday. He had 4 points and 7 rebounds in 17 minutes. But Hukporti was doing the center things that we want him to do. The rim protection, the mobility, not fouling, actually grabbing rebounds, being a force down low. That's what he was doing. And I think he really needs to be playing. I really don't see how you can play Sims anymore. I understand, Sims has been around for a while, so Thibodeau has more trust of using him right now with whenever Towns out first off, but also with Achua and Robinson out. But I think Hukporti has simply outplayed him up to this point. And that's saying something because Hukporti has not even gotten that much playing time. But the playing time that he has gotten has been better than what Sims has been providing. As a matter of fact, Hukporti's 7 points is more points than what Jericho Sims has scored in the last 3 games combined. He's scored more points than that. So, I'm not asking for Hukporti to score or anything like that. That's obviously not what we're going to do here. But I want, we obviously need that interior presence. We need the defense. We need someone who is willing to take shots underneath the basket because Sims, never takes shots whatsoever for whatever reason. For a guy that can fly as high as he can, he refuses to take any shots. He refuses to do it. Hukporti seemed willing to take shots, though. Willing to take shots, willing to find his spots, see what spots are working, what spots are not working. And he was also being good down low defensively. Playing strong defense. He wasn't fouling too much. He only had 3 fouls on the night with those 4 blocks, which is saying something about his discipline on defense. And also just moving around, switching well, communicating, rotating well. That's what a center is supposed to do. And I think he could be a really good backup for the Knicks for the time being while Achua is still out and while Robinson is still out. I think we made a video a couple of weeks ago saying why Hukporti needs to be playing over Sims. I'm going to re-emphasize that point even more now after seeing what he did last night against Brooklyn because he really made an impact. Those 30 minutes that he was out there, those were very impactful minutes, high impact minutes. Yes, he was a -4 on the night with the plus minus, but that's largely because of that horrendous fourth quarter, right? Aside from that, that was a team issue. Hukporti himself played very well. He played very well. I think he deserves minutes going forward. I think he needs to be playing. I think he needs to be the backup center behind Towns. I don't think you could play Sims anymore. As much as that hurts, as much as I know there's some Knicks fans out there, in particular one that I know, OG Anunoby Addict is his name on Twitter. I'm going to shout him out for that because he's a known Sims addict a little bit. He seems to really like Sims a lot, but aside from that, I know some other fans also like Sims, But either way, I don't think Sims should be playing. I don't. He just doesn't have it. He hasn't grown in any part of his game whatsoever in the past 3 to 4 years. And it's enough. Enough is enough. You got to let Hook Porty loose. You got to let him play, let him develop, because who knows? Maybe he could end up being a very, very solid big man, very solid backup center. And maybe that could affect Mitchell Robinson down the road. Maybe that affects, where he stands on this team and where his role is with that contract that he's playing under and the injuries that he's dealt with. That a lot could change. But I think Hook Porty has earned the shot to kind of play and get some burn while these guys are out. I think he's earned that. I think clearly he's gaining the trust from Tom Thibodeau as well, because Thibodeau let him play for 30 minutes last night. He let him close the game out too. I don't think Sims even stepped on the floor in the fourth quarter. So it's clear that there's something different. That it's clear that he's really starting to kind of see now that Hook Porty is making a larger impact than Sims has been making. So I hope going forward we see a lot more Hook Porty and a lot less Sims. That's really all I got to say about that. But other than that, I mean, there's not much else I can say about this game in particular other than thank goodness that they ended up winning the game, because if they lost, they would have fallen to 5-7 and they would have dropped yet another game to a team under 500. So they really, really lucked out with the win, because that fourth quarter got scary. It really did. I mean, Brooklyn was slowly just chipping away, and then it became an avalanche down the stretch. You had the bad foul calls that were being called down the stretch. You had the poor defense. The poor transition defense was killing them again. They need to step it up defensively in transition. I can't say that enough, because it's really getting aggravating now watching this team just not get back on defense. That's why they're giving up so many points. This team has given up an average of 115 points over their last 6 games. That's brutal. That is terrible. They've given up over 120, I think, 3 times in that same span. Something needs to change. Something. Make some adjustments defensively, because whatever it is, it's not working. Yes, they're putting up a lot of points offensively. They scored 124 last night, scored 123 against Chicago, have scored 120 a few times this season already, but the defense is not working. It's not. It's especially alarming, too, when you have Bridges and Anunoby out there. It's very alarming that they're giving up this many points at this high of a rate, especially the amount of threes that they're giving up. A lot of them are in transition. A lot of the buckets they give up are in transition, too. It's something has to change. They got to play better transition defense, because if you don't play better transition defense, you're going to wind up in situations like this where you have a big lead and then in an eye blink it's gone. You have to play better defense. It's really that simple. They got the Brooklyn Nets again tomorrow night, and then they have the Washington Wizards on Monday. The Knicks need to take care of business and win both of those games. They need to. This was the game that you can serve as the get-right game, I guess, in a way, but you also can look at this game and say, okay, well, we clearly need to do other things differently because Brooklyn came all the way back and we almost lost this game. So if they can win these next 2 games in pretty convincing fashion, if they don't win it, if they win close games, a win is a win at the end of the day, but I want to see them win in a convincing fashion, because, quite frankly, the Knicks are miles better than the Nets and the Wizards, so you should handle business and beat up on the bad teams. And that's what they need to do. They were doing that for the first 3 quarters last night, and then it just completely fell apart in the fourth quarter. They are lucky that they ended up still winning the game. They're very lucky, if anything. So you got those 2 coming up, and then after that you head to the West Coast and you play Phoenix. Phoenix won't have Kevin Durant. So that's another game that you can kind of take advantage of, because you have your guys. Yes, Karl-Anthony Towns did not play last night, neither did Deuce McBride, but I imagine those guys will be back pretty quickly. I don't think their injuries are pretty serious, so I imagine they'll be around. And then that's when you really need to take care of business. When these guys are playing, you have to. You can't be in these dog fights with this team. Look at how they beat up on the Pistons. They beat up the Pistons by 30 points, because that's what a good team is supposed to do. A good team is supposed to beat up on a bad team. A team like, we just saw them in a dogfight with Miami the other night, and they ended up beating them in overtime because of a brutal error by Eric Spoelstra, right? But my point here is that you just have to take care of business against these bad teams, and it starts with playing defense. You can't get complacent and just not play defense, because then they're going to end up doing this to you, making a comeback on you, and then all of a sudden your back is against the wall. So something's got to change, and I'm hoping that tomorrow night against Brooklyn we see better defense from them. I hope, and I hope the offense continues to do its thing, but I really need to see the defense better. It's kind of getting ridiculous now that a Tom Thibodeau-led team is playing this poor of defense. So that's really all I got to say. I think this is a good place to wrap the episode up, though. So we really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this game in the comment section below. There's obviously a lot of other things I could have hit on, but I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to stop it here. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, of course, this YouTube page that you were watching the video on. You can follow my personal Twitter account. It's right there on the screen. And I will see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.